How many of you guys came here just because it's free food? Okay, at least two of you. All right, now I know what we really got going on. That's good. Hey, listen, I really do want to thank y'all for coming tonight. I think you're in for a treat. I'm going to do my very dead level best to be done in an hour exactly because I know I'm standing between you and dinner. And I know my place well as far as that goes. But listen, we're going to get started. Everything we're going to talk about tonight should be in that book that everybody got a copy of. Did anybody not get a copy of that book? If you didn't get a copy, I'll send you one. But and do me a favor also. On your evaluation form, there's a spot with a place to write some names. If you've got a friend or a family member that would like a free book, write their name down there and I'll connect with you and I'll get them a book as well, okay? But I think you're in for a real treat. This is a message that I think is very underrated, and I don't think many financial planners are talking about it. Real quick, the last show of hands, how many of you guys are already working with a money manager or a financial planner? Good, almost all of you. Here's the good news. Leave your checkbook in your pocket. I'm not going to ask you to hire me today. I'm not even going to ask you to hire me if you come to my office. We're not money managers. Let me say that very clearly. I don't want you hiring me as your money manager. I manage a lot of money for people, but that's not the purpose of this talk. This talk has to do with taxes and retirement. Has to do with debt that's already hurting you. If I can teach you how to fix that, I would rather work with you on that basis instead of managing your money. I work with a lot of high net worth people. I work with a lot of business owners. They like to manage their own money. I've learned that they either A, are paying somebody else to manage their money for them, or B, they're really good at math. And what they're really wanting is to know what the math is. Okay? Is that fair? We all good with that? All right. This disclaimer says you can't believe a thing I say. If you have a question, ask your CPA. All right? But hopefully you came here tonight because you're looking for something that you didn't know. And our hope is that you're open-minded enough to hear something new that you've never thought of before. And if I'm in your way, just throw something at me. Okay? I'll be happy to move. All right. So Dawn's already written this down. It should be in everybody's folder. Okay? But these websites are websites that we built for our clients and our prospective clients so they can go in and start looking at what these programs mean to them. And they can ask for some free reports to understand what these numbers mean for their situation. When you go to these sites, it's important that you use that access code. Everybody has it written in your folder, but you cannot enter the site without an access code. Okay? But you'll learn a ton of good information about your current circumstances. All right? So you guys help me finish this statement. There's nothing certain in life except... Awesome. I've never had anybody get that wrong. Ever. And here's what's funny. We go to school, but nobody ever taught us this. You know why? We learned this by hard knocks. Everybody got that answer right. And I didn't say this was a Republican problem, a Democrat problem, a Baptist problem, a Catholic problem. This is a math problem. And that's what we're going to be talking about. That actually was a Ben Franklin statement. And what he really said was, in this world, nothing can said to be certain except death and taxes. But at SMART, we spun it to a little bit different variation. In this life, nothing can be more devastating to your wealth than debt and taxes. And that's what we're going to talk about. Everybody good with that? Oh, and hey, listen, we're a small enough group that you can ask me a question and I'll do my best to answer it. But if I'm answering a question for Paul, that doesn't mean that's the answer for Brian. Everybody good with that? And here's the other thing. Your question might be pretty personal and you don't want to ask it out loud. Awesome. Write it on the notepad and catch me afterwards and I'll answer it privately for you. That fair? All right, good. Debt and taxes are killing the way Americans save for retirement. And in fact, it severely limits the way they retire well. Okay? So if I looked at your lifetime income, if this was Matt's lifetime income, 40 cents of every dollar he ever made in his life while he's working or in retirement goes to taxes. That's not just federal income taxes, that's state taxes, That's the taxes on your candy bar and Coke. That's the taxes you spend on your hotel rooms. But 40 cents of every dollar you ever made goes to taxes. Now 25% of every dollar you make goes to your lifestyle. Now that's the watch you wear, the car you drive, the neighborhood you live in, right? But because we're Americans, we want bigger lifestyles, so we spend money on debt. 25% of every dollar you make goes to pay some kind of debt. I talk to a lot of people who tell me I'm not in debt. I don't owe anybody. Oh yeah? How much you got in your 401k? $1 million? You're in debt because somebody's going to get a portion of that you don't get to keep, right? Now here's 10% that most people put in savings. Some people are big savers. They save 15 or 20%. Some people are terrible savers. They only save 1 or 2%. But I'm going to tell you, I can go in 100 miles in that direction or 100 miles in that direction, and every money manager that I talk to wants to fight over who gets to manage that 10%. That's why I'm not a money manager. Think about this. If I can teach you how to shave off some of those taxes, if I can teach you how to eliminate some of your debt, look how much more money we can put in savings, eliminating things instead of chasing rates of return. And I know our programs work because they're proven. The actuarial science behind them says they work. Okay? But I would much rather teach you how to eliminate things that you're already losing than try to show you a better investment that'll get you an extra 0.5% maybe. Okay? So when you make it to retirement, your money gets hit over and over and over and over and over again. Because I want you to remember something. When you retire, in fact, I was talking to Billy back here. He said Kathy's already retired. When you retire, things happen. Those hits. The first thing that goes when you get old is your health. Your health care cost goes up. My mom is paying $964 a month for prescription medication that she needs to stay alive. She can't avoid that cost. And I promise you, when she was 50, planning for retirement, guess who her retirement guy was? It was me, unfortunately. She didn't have that baked into the numbers. Okay? Inflation. How many of you guys think you can buy the same thing today with $100 that you could buy 10 years ago? No, nobody thinks that. Well, what do you think 10 years from now looks like? Has that been taken into account? We're going to be talking about taxes tonight, but here's one that most people don't think about, are surprises. You know, when you go to retire, good things happen and there's good surprises, but there could be bad surprises. Let me tell you a good surprise. Dawn, good news, you're going to be a grandmother. Everybody's happy. That's good news. It won't be right now, but it would be good news. But here's the bad surprise. Dawn, you need to raise your granddaughter. How many of you guys know somebody who's raising a grandchild right now? Almost everybody in here. It's not that they don't want to do it. They do it with loving arms. But that wasn't part of their 50-year-old retirement strategy, was it? They thought their children were going to be in a better position to care for themselves. Surprises can catch you, okay? So I want you to remember, when it comes to your money, you're the superhero that's going to be able to protect it. It's not your advisor, it's not your banker, it's not your CPA, and it certainly isn't your favorite uncle. You're the only one that's going to be interested in protecting your money. So you better learn the math that goes into your money, or else you're going to be sorely surprised. So there's two kinds of people that I've run into during my course of my career. The first one is people that see a problem, they recognize it's a problem, and they take action to fix it. But then you have people that see the same problem and they hope it goes away or it gets better with time. I'm going to tell you, taxes are not like fine wine. They don't get better with time. So you need to be ready for what it's going to do to you going forward. And most people never know how to calculate what those taxes are. But everybody knows this young fella, Albert Einstein. Compound interest is the ninth wonder of the world. He who understands it earns it, but he who doesn't pays it. So I want you to know your money's either going to compound for you or for somebody else. And if you're in this for the long haul, you want it compounding for you, because remember, retirement is 30 years of unemployment. How many of you guys are ready to be unemployed for 30 years? Not very many of it. Well, maybe you guys are. So, what if I could show you how to reduce your taxes in retirement? Would you want to? Yeah, everybody says, sure, I'd want to. I just don't know how. So let me tell you a quick story about a parable of a king that was facing a famine. In the kingdom, they were running out of food. So he requisitioned every grain of rice and kept it in the storehouse. Told everybody, you can't have any rice, I want it, so you don't starve. A little girl found the rice, little grain of rice on the side of the road, said, this doesn't belong to me, it belongs to the king. So she took it to the king and said, dear kind king, I think this belongs to you. He said, you know, you're such a good and faithful servant. I'm going to give you anything that you ask for that's within my power. And the little girl was smart. She said, okay, well, if that's true, can I keep this grain of rice and you double it every single day for a month? 1 turns to 2, 2 turns to 4, 4 to 8, 8, 16, and so on. By the end of the month, she owned every grain of rice in the kingdom. See, the little girl did the math on the compounding of the interest. The king didn't. He thought it was just a nice gesture. So let's look at what that really means. I happen to call this a little girl's individual rice account. It's her IRA. All right? But 1 turn to 2, by the time she gets down to 30 years, she's got over $1 billion, or 1 billion rice grains. So let's do this real quick. If I turn the rice into dollars and if I turn the days into years, look at year 20. Doesn't that look suspiciously like a retirement account? If I had somebody that was putting money into a retirement account consistently for 20 years, that's pretty much what they'd have in there. Some people less, some people more, but that looks a whole lot like a retirement account. But let me tell you what got the little girl. Because the king got mad, he said, you know, you tricked me. So I'm going to put a 10% tax on you. I want you to see what happened to that little girl's money with just a 10% tax. And before you say, wow, I want to ask who in here is in a 10% tax bracket? None of you. She lost 67% of her buying power on a 10% tax. What do you think a 20% tax does? 88% of her buying power. And I got news for you. It's not the king, it's Uncle Sam. And here's what's really sad for everybody in this room. That's the guy that gets to set this rate. And if you don't know what that rate is for you, you need to start doing the math. And I got news for you. It's going to get higher in the next 10 to 15 years. And I know for a fact it's going to get higher January 1st, 2026. And how would I know that? Because the government told me so. And I'll show you that math. So anyway, when you sit down with one of our smart advisors, we've got 3 main goals. So the first goal is we want to give you protected income that you can never outlive. We want to give you the lowest tax rate in your retirement account that we can get you to. And we want to show you how to be debt-free for life forever. That might not be you, but I can tell you this, it affects 90% of America, and it's bad. And if it's not you, you need to learn what this means for your children. Fair? All right. So there's been 3 dates that have changed the face of the retirement system in the United States forever. Forever. And I'm going to tell you what they are, but I want you guys to ask me, what happened on January 1st, 2008? Baby boomers turned age 62. What happens when you turn age 62? You're eligible for Social Security. What happens in January 1st, 2011? Turn 65. What happens when you're 65? You're now eligible for Medicare. Now think about what this means. 10,000 people a day since January 1st has turned 62. 10 years, actually that's 11 years, 10,000 people a day have turned age 62 since January 1st, 2011, 10,000 people a day have turned 65. Why is that a problem? Our system, Social Security, Medicare, was not built to sustain that kind of weight. Right? So let's look at something real quick. I don't know if you believe taxes are going to go up. I happen to. Our smart advisors do. But let me give you some math real quick. If I were paying back $1 a second, Kelly, and had to pay back $1 million, it would take me 12 days to pay back $1 million. What do you think the math says if I had to pay back $1 billion? Anybody? How about 36 years? What if it was $1 trillion? Wild guess? How about 36,000 years? And the government will admit to being in debt for $22 trillion. We don't have enough people pushing the boat to help sustain that system. Look at these numbers. Y'all know how 157 million, what that represents? That's the number of people that are actually in the workforce today. 123 million of those people file tax returns and owe 0 taxes. So what that tells you is this: 34 million people are carrying the weight for the rest of us. And I'm looking at a bunch of them right here. 169 million, that's the number of Americans that are on some kind of government subsidy. So think about what that means for everybody in this room. Guys, you guys are in this room because you've either accumulated a lot of assets or you've got a high income. Y'all are probably part of that 34 million. And you guys are the ones that are funneling the benefits to the 169 million. 49% of the total U.S. population is on some kind of benefit plan. Right? Here's the reason I know the taxes are going up January 1st, 2026, because Congress says it will. Some of you guys recognize last year Trump came out with a new tax code. Here's what the tax code says. We're going to lower the tax bracket thresholds, and we're going to lower the calculation of the taxes inside those thresholds. How many of you guys know we're on a progressive tax system? Let me tell you what that means real quick. Just because you make a bunch of money doesn't mean you're in a 24% tax cost. You're in a 24% tax bracket, but you're not paying 24% on every dollar. A guy in a 24% bracket is probably actually in an 18% tax cost. Okay? But here's the deal. This law sunsets January 1st, 2026, and it goes to the new numbers. So that guy that was right here in the 24% tax bracket on January 1st is now in a 33% tax bracket. I already know your taxes are going up. The trick is, how many of you guys are retiring in the next 6 years? Almost all of us. Well, maybe. I don't know, Don. We got work to do. But the idea is, we know this is coming. What we also know is that means we're in a political window of opportunity where our taxes are lower now than they're probably ever going to be. So are you ready to take some action about that? I hope so. Now, some of you guys are thinking, wait a second, he never told us the third date. Let's look at that. The third date was July 1st, 2016. Anybody know what happened on that day? Baby boomers turned 70 and a half. What happens at 70 and a half? Required minimum distributions, but here's the difference. It's uncontrolled required minimum distributions. Does everybody know why it's uncontrolled? Because you don't pick the number, Uncle Sam does. They get the control of what this number is supposed to be. If you don't take that required minimum distribution, do you know what the penalty is? 50% of what you should have taken. Guys, that's a tax on a tax. That's not good. So let's look at what an uncontrolled requirement distribution looks like. If you're 70, they take your life expectancy and they have you divide your retirement assets by that life expectancy. So if I had $100,000 in my Rice account, they're wanting me to take out $3,600. That doesn't sound like a lot of money. Paying taxes on $3,600 is not a big deal. But if that had a 0 on it, that would be $36,000. Now you've got some problems. But that's the number that's scary. the 3.64. Somebody write that down and remember it, because I'm going to ask for it in a second. 3.64 is what the government is forcing you to eat out of that retirement account, whether you need the money or not. Okay? Everybody knows who Morningstar is? Morningstar is nothing more than a reporting company that goes in and they do market research for hedge fund, money managers, business analysts. They even run a few mutual funds. Okay? But Morningstar did a report that said how much money can the average American pull out of their retirement account and never go broke? In other words, how much money could they live on to age 90 and have $1 left over in the bank? Just one. The answer was 2.7%. Most of us grew up hearing, if you take out 4%, you'll be safe. Not according to the pros. The research analyst says you can only pull out 2.6, 2.7, 2.8%. And it doesn't matter where your money is. If you're in all bonds, if you're in all stock, this is not something you can diversify away, because in every quadrant, it's the same number, 2.7, 2.8. So think about that. When you're 80, look at that withdrawal rate, 5.3. So what I just showed you was this. Morningstar, professional money managers, say the most you can pull out of your retirement account without ever going broke is 2.7, 2.8. Uncle Sam is force feeding you 3.6 and 5.3. That means you're going to run out of money if you're not planning properly. Why are they making you take the distribution? Because they want the tax. They're force feeding you. All right, so look at this. If you had $1 million in your account, according to Morningstar, you're only living on $27,000 a year. How many of you guys would sign up for that job? None of us. None of us. Another bad thing that I see that happens in the financial services industry is I hear guys all the time talking about average rates of return. Oh, my guy, he's got me 8%. My guy got me at 5%. My guy's really conservative. I only make 4%. I'm going to tell you that's one of the biggest deceptions in financial planning, because the market doesn't work on averages. So let's take a look at this. If I went to everybody in this room and I put in writing, signed it, got a notary stamp, I will give you 14.84% guaranteed for the next 30 years. Who would hire me? Y'all are nuts. Everybody should have hired me. Absolutely. This is a guarantee that's better than anything on the market, right? If that's true, some guy comes to me with $1 million and says, Tracey, I don't want to live high on the hog, but I want $100,000 a year. With those numbers, I could pay him $100,000 a year for 30 years, and he'll have $15 million in the bank when we're done. You guys would be telling everybody in the world what a great guy I am. You ought to talk to my guy. 14.8, right? Unfortunately, that's not how the market works, because constant rates of return is not the way fluctuating rates of return work. How many of you guys seen the market in the last 3 days? It's nauseating. It doesn't mean it's bad. It's just it's up and down. I don't like up and down, but maybe some people do. But if I looked at the 30-year window from 1970 to the year 2000, that's exactly what the average rate of return is. 14.84%. And I could sit in any court in the land and argue and defend myself, and they would say, yeah, he's right. I want you to notice something. You can't see this very well, but it's in your folder. Out of these 30 years, do you realize there's only 5 years that were negative? Only 5. The other 25 were exceptionally wonderful. Look down here. 33%, 37%, 37, 23, 32. You had some great years. Good for you. But there's only 5 that were negative. But let's do this. Let's take that same guy that had the $1 million, and instead of using the average rate of return of 14.8, let's use the actual rate of return he would have got. Okay? There's his $100,000 a year, and he's got 0 by the time he's 79. He is broke working at Walmart. Not that Walmart's a bad place to work. But I want to tell you a story. I do these seminars all over the country, and I was flying out to LA. So I had to be at CVG at 3 in the morning, and there was a guy driving me to the airport on the shuttle. And I said, man, you must really like your job to be driving me to the airport at 3 o'clock. I'm the only one on the shuttle. He says, I hate this dang job. Of course, he didn't say dang. He said, this job stinks. I used to work for Fifth Third Bank, and my money doesn't buy squat anymore. I have to work this job to pay my bills. And I got news for you. That story is more true for more Americans than everybody wants to admit it is. Okay? So let's take a look at what the market's really done since 1997. We had a great couple of years, and some of you guys had money in the market back in 2000. I was in this business in 2000, and you know what? I lost every single investment client I had, and this was the call I got. Tracey, I don't need to keep paying you to lose money. I can do that by myself. Yeah, well, you might be right. So I lost them. But they lost everything. They stuck with it because I said, hey, stick with it. You're going to make it. Not with you, I'm not. But they climbed back up. But then in 2008, 2009, we lost it all again. Now, if you look right there, that looks pretty stellar, right? But for those of you guys that study the market, they call that the lost decade. And the reason it's the lost decade is this. Whatever money you had in 1997, you had less of it in 2009. Every gain you ever had was gone. Now, I want you to understand, I learned this from the Rothschilds. If you want to stay rich, you avoid bubbles that burst. I'll say that again. If you want to stay rich, you avoid bubbles that burst. My question is, does anybody know what that's going to do next? We've not had a significant correction, and it should have happened right here about 2015, 2016, and it didn't. If you're not paying attention, I would be nervous about that. And here's why I'd be nervous about it. We're at an age right now where we're not accumulating as much money as we need to be because we're about to start distributing it. And that puts us all in a bad position. Because when you're retiring, it's like climbing a mountain. When you're young and growing, that's your accumulation phase. You use money differently when you're young and working. Like I know Mark owns a business. He resources his money to get the most out of it, right? But there's going to be a day when he's not working, and the day that happens, the math dramatically and significantly changes because your money is not designed to grow anymore. It's designed to be distributed as income. And when that happens, you can't put your money in the same positions that it's in that you got it there, right? So you have to ask yourself, what's the objective when I get to retirement? Is it a 5%, 9%, 12% rate of return, or is it cash? And I'll argue with everybody to say it's cash. I'd rather have cash than an interest rate any day, especially if I'm unemployed for 30 years, right? So let's get SMART. SMART stands for Strategic Movement Around Retirement Taxation, okay? It's real simple. How many of you guys would agree a smart retirement is better than a dumb retirement? I know I would, right? But let's first understand where you got your money, okay? This is what almost everybody looks like when they come talk to me. They've got a lot of money in tax deferred. Tax deferred is money in IRAs, 401ks, thrift savings plans, SEPs, deferred compensation plans. They've got a lot of money over there. And tax deferred means it's never seen the light of day, which means it's never been taxed, right? Then you've got investment account money. That might be Ameritrade, Merrill Lynch, Morgan Stanley, wherever. That's good. But then you get tax-free money. And almost zero people we talk to have their money positioned there. Almost none of them. And when I ask that question, they say, well, my advisor says we can't do that. Yeah, you can. You just haven't talked to the right guy yet. So let's talk about that a little bit. Remember the king who gets to set your tax rate? He's your partner here. Your favorite uncle gets his money first, and you get everything left over. The trick is, do you really think the tax rates are going to stay where they are or go up? My hunches are going to go up, but let's hope they don't, okay? So if I could teach you how to move tax-deferred money into a tax-free bucket, say that again. If I can teach you how to put tax-deferred money into a tax-free bucket, how much would you want to move? All of it. Everybody in here would say all of it. I just don't know how to do that, and I've been told I owe the taxes on it. Okay, we're going to work on a case in just a second, and you're going to see what that really looks like. You're not going to avoid taxes, but wouldn't you rather pay lower taxes than pay full sticker? Think about this. You know that slide I said was taxes were on sale? I like fishing. I go to Cabela's. They've got a big sale on my favorite fishing pole. Dawn says, hey, you've been wanting that pole. Why don't you go ahead and get it? Nah, you know what, Dawn, I'm going to wait. Next week it'll be full price and I'll pay it then. That's just stupidity. Well, why am I doing that on my money? Right? All right. So let's talk about this. I hear this all the time. Tracey, I'm going to be in a lower tax bracket when I get old, when I retire. And I hope you are. I really hope you are. In fact, part of SMART's goal is to get you to that lower tax bracket. That's what we do. But I want you to think about something. That's not always the case. And I'm talking to you from experience about what I saw happen with my mom and dad. Because my mom got old and her taxes didn't go down. She lost a few things. She lost the mortgage deduction on their house because they sold the house and moved into a retirement community. All the kids were gone, so she didn't have a child deduction. They were not putting money into the IRA or the 401k anymore, so that was off the table. And the money they were giving to the church for their tithe, now my mom was volunteering at the church on Tuesday so moms could go to Mother's Day out. She was donating time, not money. So she lost that deduction. And this was the one that she didn't think of at all. When my dad passed away, she's no longer filing joint married. She's filing single head of household. She lost his deduction. Nobody thinks about that. The only thing left is your personal exemption. Are you taking advantage of that? I don't know. I hope so. So let's meet Liz. Okay? Liz is actually a client of mine, but I promise you this isn't her picture, and her name is not Liz. All right? But this is a real case. All right? I'll walk you through it. She's a 64-year-old female. She's in really good health. She's married to Frank and had 2 kids. Her Social Security was $29.48, and her plans were to take it next year when she retired at age 65. All right? Her effective tax cost was 16%. She was in a 22% tax bracket, but her effective tax cost was only 16%. Everybody got those numbers good? You don't have to remember them. You'll see them again. Here's her problem. She had $500,000 in IRA money that she did not need. Now, I hope we all have problems like that. I've got $500,000 I did not need. Here's the issue, though. Because she had a great CPA, she overconsumed her retirement account. She had too much money in the wrong spot. Let's see the taxes on that. Because she wasn't needing the money for income, it fell to her RMDs. The uncontrolled RMDs for 30 years was $216,000 in taxes. Now remember, she only started with $500, but that money grows. The Social Security now was taxed because of the RMDs. She owed $368,000 on Social Security taxes. Again, a tax on a tax, right? And then the money that her kids inherited, they owed $175,000 on tax. So with a $500,000 IRA that she did not need for income, she had $760,000 of taxes built into it. And I'm going to ask everybody that raised their hand from their money manager, how many times has your money manager done that math with you? Never. You know why? They don't want to talk about it. I'm going to tell you, you need to understand the impact of this. It looks good because your money's growing, but it was built that way for taxes so the government could get their fair share. This is what her report looked like. I know you can't see this number very well, but the choice was this. She could spend the $760,000 on taxes, or using our program, it was $84,000. So Matt, if this were your story, and you could eliminate or reduce the taxes, would you want to pay the $760,000 or the $84,000? No brainer. The trick is you just have to know how to pay it. We don't want you to pay it all at once. Why don't we spread that out for you? We know how to do that. When I sit and I talk to money managers that says there's no way to get around the taxes, you're right, there's no way to get around the taxes, but you're a knucklehead if you agree to pay all of them, especially when there are rules in place that says you don't have to. And anybody in here that wants to know what their tax deal is, check that yes box on your evaluation sheet, and I can show it to you in 30 minutes, and it'll be right. And we'll go through the math together to make sure you understand it. But if you want to sit down with us for 30 minutes, I promise you, you're going to be blown away at what you see those numbers are for you. And you may have more in your account than $500,000. Okay? Remember, there's two kinds of people out there. People that see a problem and take action, or people that see a problem and think it'll go away. And I'm going to tell you, this is not going to go away. And you're not going to outlive it. Because if you don't pay the taxes, it's just going to transfer to your spouse. And if your spouse is already gone, your kids are going to pay the taxes. You guys need to write this down. I want y'all to Google this when you get home. Look up the SECURE Act. S-E-C-U-R Act. S-E-C-U-R-E Act. This just passed the House. Let me tell you something. The vote on that was 417-3 to pass. How many times can you get Republicans and Democrats in a room and they can't even agree it's dark outside? But they all agreed that this was a good idea. If you read the fine print, by the way, that article's in your brochure, in your folders. You read the fine print, they're bragging because they moved the RMD age from 70 and a half to 72. Sounds like a pretty good deal. But here's what they took away. They took away the stretch IRA. So when your kids inherit your retirement account, they are being forced to liquidate it. Now this rule says over 10 years. The one in the Senate, which is probably going to pass, is over 5 years. The Senate's voting on it right now because they're rewriting it. This is going to pass. Now here's the problem with that. Go back to this. When your kids inherit your IRA, they pay the tax at their rate, not at your rate. So think about Jay. If Jay inherits that money and he's making $300,000 a year, but he has to take $200,000 a year from you, what tax bracket is he in? The highest one they got. I'm going to tell you, if you don't like taxes, why are you doing that to your children? Because that's who's going to have to pay it. And some of you guys may have had to live through this yourselves. All right, so let's keep going. We love working with Roth IRAs. We're really good at building Roth IRAs for income streams. Sometimes, though, because Roth IRAs have limitations, we're not able to put them in play for people. But those limitations aren't true when you're doing a Roth IRA conversion. So for example, if Brian left a job 3 or 4 years ago, he might have taken a 401k with him. That money's eligible for a Roth conversion. You just have to know how to do it, right? What that does is that eliminates taxes for him forever when he starts taking that money, and he's too young to start taking that money. So how does that work? You need to know how the rules are. But when we get a situation where people want to contribute more outside of a qualified plan, we use specially designed insurance contracts. And we're going to spend a few minutes talking about that. But a specially designed insurance contract is used by banks and corporations and have been for years to accumulate cash, but that's not the reason they do it. They're really not great cash accumulation tools. You know what they are great at? eliminating taxes. We're going to take a look at that real quick. Look at these Tier 1 assets of all these banks. I got Wells Fargo, Bank of America, Bank of New York. Wells Fargo has $18 billion of life insurance in force. And it's not because they're scared the manager's going to die. The custodian's going to make it to work. They do that because of the tax advantages. Life insurance. They only own $7 billion worth of real estate. But they've got $18 billion in life insurance. That's almost 17% of their total Tier 1 assets. Look at Bank of America. $20 billion in life insurance assets. They've only got $9 billion in real estate. They've got more money in SDICs than they do in actual buildings. Right? So if it's right for these guys, and they're probably doing it for tax reasons, have you ever looked at it for you? I don't know. Might not be a good idea, but it could be. So let's take a look at some of these smart people. These are CEOs of major corporations here in America. And I want you to notice something. There is none of them on here that are in a 401k plan. None of them. The only one that has a 401k plan is Sammy Palmisano. And the reason he has a 401k plan is he was promoted up through the ranks. And before he was an officer of the company, he wasn't eligible for their executive bonus program. But every one of these guys have SDICs, split dollar agreements. But I like picking on Ken Lewis, and I'll tell you why, because I think it's funny as we get through this. But Ken Lewis, this is his retirement plan through an SDIC. When he retires, he gets $3.4 million a year for the rest of his life, tax-free. When he dies, his wife gets $2.2 million a year for the rest of her life, tax-free. Now, do you think Bank of America is doing that because they like that guy? Probably not. He's just smart. But there's a lot of smart people. They're doing it because of this right here. They carry a $53 million life insurance policy on him. When he dies, they get all their money back. It was just a perk that it's tax-free to him. Now, this is what I think is really funny. Bank of America owns Merrill Lynch. So the head guy at Bank of America, who owns Merrill Lynch, uses a life insurance contract to do his retirement plans. The largest money manager in the nation doesn't even manage his retirement account. He probably has some money over there, but I want you to think about that. I'm pretty sure it's because of the tax position, not because of the rate of return. I'm going to tell you right now, you're going to lose more money in your life to taxes than you're going to lose to market fluctuations. Let me tell you why I say that. Taxes never get better. Never. Markets do. You can lose everything in a market. If you stick around long enough and have a stomach for it, you'll climb back up out of that hole. But not with taxes. They get worse over and over and over again. Look at this guy, tech billionaire, bought $200 million worth of insurance. I'm pretty sure he's a billionaire and he didn't need the money. I don't think he bought this to pay off his house and to make sure his kids went to college. He bought it because of the tax implications. How many of you guys are Michigan fans? Maybe one. Highest paid college coach. You know how he gets paid? Out of a life insurance contract. $2 million a year tax-free when he retires. When he got this deal, every major college coach in the country got one just like it. I happen to know the agent that wrote that policy. He's out of Fort Worth. I don't know how he got in to do it, but good for him. But people use life insurance because of the tax position on it. So, our 3 goals for retirement is increase protected income, minimize your taxes, and again, to help you be debt-free forever if that's an issue for you. But I want you to understand the secret to this is this. We are very, very, very good at math. And we've taken the time to understand it and study it. And I'm going to tell you, if you've got a money manager, good, bring them with you. I will teach him how to do this. I'm not interested in taking money away from that guy. What my job is, if I see something good that's going to save you money, It's my job to tell you, I've got an idea that can save you money. Then the trick is, do we want to position something to take care of that? I don't want you to leave your relationship. I hope it's a good one. But if you want to see what this looks like, and if they won't help you do it, find somebody that will. So if I asked you if you wanted to be debt-free for life, including your mortgage, for life, would you want to? Most people say, yeah. I talk to a lot of people that are completely debt-free. Good for them. Most of Americans aren't. But I'm going to tell you this, our upcoming generation of our children, this is choking the life out of them because of student loan debt. Some of them were nice enough to go to school on scholarships, or maybe their parents were able to pay their way. But that's going to be a problem, a real problem. So remember my lifetime income that we talked about from Matt? 25% of every dollar they ever make, 25% of every dollar you ever made has gone to pay off debt. Regardless of what it is. Maybe it was business debt. Maybe you bought a business. But 25% at least of every dollar you ever made has gone to debt. So when we work with high net worth clients, one thing we've learned, they hate debt and they hate paying interest. And that's probably why they're high net worth clients. They would rather make money than lose money. Okay? I had a lady Tuesday night says, well, what's your definition of a high net worth client? And really, that's a relative term. I know people that are completely happy living on $25,000 a year, and to them, they made it. They won the lottery. I know other people that can't live on $50,000 a month. It's all relative. But I'm going to tell you, the people that have money, a lot of money, hate debt. So how do they avoid it? We believe debt's a 4-letter word. Okay? And I'm going to tell you, APR isn't what you think it is. Everybody, I hope everybody in here has had a chance to buy a mortgage, or maybe you bought a car on credit. Right there at the top of the contract, they've got a truth in lending statement. 360 payments of $1,300, and your interest rate is 3%. Good for you. You got great credit, right? Looks pretty good. I want to show you where that 3% is wrong. So let's buy a car. This happens to be a BMW. And Tara, you look beautiful in that new BMW. It's blue and it makes your eyes sparkle, right? But that car's window sticker is $51,000. Kevin's a great negotiator. You guys went in there and you said, hey, I got this, Kevin. You be quiet. I'm going to negotiate it down. And you got the guy to sell it to you for $48,000. You had a trade-in. So your finance balance was $45,000. The credit union said you can get 3.25% for 72 months at $688. And don't forget, you look great in that car, and that new leather smell makes you feel good. So you can handle $688, right? All right. That's not how the math works. If I looked at the 3.2% though, that first payment was $688, but the interest built into that first payment was $122. So if I know how amortization schedules work, you're paying 18% on that car. The second year is not much better. The second month. In fact, this problem exists until I get to the 60th month of that contract, and that's the first time I get close to the 3.25%. 5 years into the contract. If you think buying a car is bad, you ought to see what it is on a house. That's the payment right there. That's the interest on that house. That's your effective interest cost, 64%. I hear guys tell me all the time, hey, I don't want to pay off my house because I get the tax write-off. Okay, I got that. You got a tax write-off, but where are you investing that money to get 64% return on it? Even with the tax write-off, it doesn't make sense to carry that balance. You're paying interest to somebody else. Remember what Einstein said? He who understands it earns it. He who doesn't pays it. You're paying it. This thing never breaks even until 349 months. Brian, if you're smart with math, that's the 29th year. You break even in year 29 on your mortgage. Now, when you sit down and get a debt elimination plan, this looks suspiciously like the Spikes household, all right? But you got credit card debt, you got a boat, you got some cars, you got a truck, you got a mortgage. But look how much we're spending in interest every single month. About 30% of our monthly outgo on those bills is going to interest. That's not a good position to be in. A smart debt-free for life plan looks and focuses on the most efficient way possible to pay off all those debts. There's about 732 different combinations of ways to pay off that debt, but there's only one of them that makes efficient sense. And what do you mean by efficient sense, Tracy? Well, let's take a look at it. If you'll go to that Debt Free for Life website and plug that information in, it'll kick out a report for you that'll show you what you've got, and then we'll reach out to you and say, hey, we'll send you the report that'll show you how to pay that off. Okay? This is not a debt consolidation program. This is truly a debt elimination plan. But here's the deal. We want to give you a report that not only helps you pay all the debt off, but it also helps you accumulate cash. Based on that report I showed you earlier, this is saying that we could be debt-free in 8.5 years, debt-free including the mortgage, 8.5 years, and we'll have $372,000 in liquid cash when we're done. I want that plan versus me paying another 29 years on mortgage. Let me ask you this question. How many of you guys have ever paid off a 30-year mortgage? 2 people. But they're in the same house, so it's 1. Right? How many of you guys have ever refinanced? Almost all of you. Most people refinance mortgages because they're triggering on, I want a lower payment or I want a lower interest rate. I'm going to tell you, it's not the interest rate that's killing you. It's the time value of money that's killing you. That's what's hurting you the most. If you could be debt-free, 100% debt-free, here's what's cool about that number there. At the end of 8.5 years, if I've got $370,000 in the bank, plus whatever else I've got, do I ever have to go in debt again? I can pay cash for my cars. I don't have to put anything on a credit card unless I get points and I pay it off at the end of the month. But this is the position that most people want to be in. They just don't. Because it's so easy just to let the debt ride. Okay? So I want you guys to imagine how you would feel when you realize that you're completely debt-free forever and there's no way in the world you can outlive your income in retirement. And I mean the income you're making right now. I'm not talking fractions of your income. I'm talking the income you're making right now. How would that make you feel? Everybody would love this retirement party. I show up on Friday. They give me cupcakes and punch and a big card. They walk me out the door with my little book, slap me on the back, and I go my merry way. And Monday morning when I wake up, I get the exact same paycheck, but I never have to go back into that office. Everybody wants that retirement. We all do. But that's what you want. I want a guaranteed income in retirement I can't outlive. Now, I also want you to think how you'd feel if you knew if anything ever happened to you. Your family inherits all your money tax-free, all of it, tax-free. And they don't have to settle any of your affairs. We would all want that for our families, right? So look, we do this every day. I see people every day and I help them go over their plans and I help them understand how the math works. Some people hire, some people don't. That's okay. It's a no obligation deal with me. I'm happy to show you. If it's something you think I can help you with, good. But you only retire once, so you want to get it right. It doesn't mean you've got bad advice in the past. I just don't think you've gotten this advice before. Okay? So if you want to see what that looks like, then check the box and let's sit down for 30 minutes. You know, if we spent 60 minutes together to plan for the next 30 years, it'd be the best 60 minutes of your retirement because at least now you know. But if you agree that taxes in retirement are bad for you, then check the box and let's find out what they are. If you want to avoid or eliminate them, it doesn't mean you're signing up to do business with us. I want you to prove me what my numbers are. If you hate debt too, so do I. Let's kick it in the can. But hey, if you want to fix that problem, Let's find out what it is. I'm going to tell you there is no obligation with us, and we don't charge a fee. I used to be a fee-based planner. I'm a fiduciary. I can manage people's money just like everybody else, but I don't charge a fee anymore. So if you want to sit down with me, let's talk it over and let's find out what it looks like. But I just want you to know what you're getting into. Look, monitoring this problem doesn't fix it. Be a person of action and do something about it. If you don't want to work with us, fine. Get your money manager to sit down and teach this to you. If he won't do it, call me and bring him with you. I'm happy to help. Happy to help. But I want to tell you a quick story. Most of you guys in the room know my little girl, Caroline. Light of my world. I just love her to death. But I want to tell you some things I learned from my own mistake. This has nothing to do with financial planning, right? But in Texas, I came home from work, and Dawn says, hey, we've got a real problem. There's a yellow jacket nest right outside our back door, and the kids can't play. Come on, I'm from Texas. I can handle this. This is easy. So I get suited up, big coat, parka, goggles, gloves. I'm not going to get stung. I go out with a broom and a can of Raid, and I'm going to war with about 30 yellow jackets, right? I go out there, I hit them hard, I swat them around. They're swarming all around me, and I'm thinking to myself how smart I am that I took the time to protect myself, until I find out that Caroline was standing behind me, and she was 2. She got hit 6 times and her throat swelled up, and we ended up having to go to the hospital for 4 hours because they were scared that she was allergic to the bee stings or the yellow jacket sting. So the reason I tell you that is this. I thought I was covered for me. I didn't take the time to look around me. If you don't like the sting of poor decisions, then by all means don't make the people you care about the most carry that burden too. Take the time to understand what it means. It's simple. It's easy. It's not rocket science. It's just a matter of understanding, if I do this, what's the repercussions if this happens? What's the repercussions if I don't do this? Is that fair? That makes sense? Listen, you guys have been great tonight. Thank you guys for being part of our group. I'm going to ask Leslie and Dawn to come around and pick up your evaluation forms. And guys, just so you know, that evaluation form, that's one way that we can prove to the IRS that we actually bought you guys dinner. So I need one back from everybody if that's okay. And if you don't mind, if you're husband and wife, put both names on there. But I want to show you guys real quick what you get when you come to our office. We do a Social Security report that shows you the maximum day that you're supposed to take your Social Security for both spouses, and it will maximize the benefit on that, okay? We also give you, if it's important to you, a debt elimination plan, if that's something that's necessary. We will give you your taxes and retirement report that will itemize it for you. And we also will sit down and give you an income verification sheet that will teach you which assets you use in retirement first, so you can get the most gain out of all of them working together. If you went to any financial planner in the city, they're going to charge you $2,500 for this, and we'll do it for you for free. Okay? But guys, y'all have been a great group. Dawn, Leslie, if you guys could help me go ahead and start collecting those evaluation forms when everybody's done. But hey, if you wrote a question down that you didn't ask in the main presentation and you want me to answer it for you, just grab me. I'll be back at the back of the room. But man, thank y'all so much. And I want to give Dawn and Leslie a hand for being such a good help for us. Y'all have a great dinner, and we'll be around. But thank y'all for coming.